In this video, I'm talking to Alexis from HackerSploit, and we're answering your cybersecurity questions. Welcome, everybody. This is actually our second video in this series in which we answer your questions. So you can leave your questions in the form that's in the description of this video. And in this series, we're actually answering your cybersecurity related questions. This is the second video. Like I said, you can watch the previous video to get a bit of a context. In that first video, we also give like a more detailed background of who we are and what we do. But for starters, I'm Chris. And I'm with Alexis. Both of us work in cybersecurity. So I myself, for the moment, I work as a penetration tester. And also I do some bug bounty hunting. I've just started recently. I'm getting into bug bounty hunting. So these are actually my active interests in cybersecurity. And I'm actually going to let Alexis give a few words about himself as well.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So as Chris said, I run a YouTube channel and I currently work as a network penetration tester. The current area that I've been focusing on, as I said in the previous video, was working with the Linux kernel and some Linux systems programming as well. And sort of working around just how the kernel works, looking at the various libraries and modules that exist there, and also starting to take an active interest in kernel hardening. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've been looking at for the last few months. And now I'll pass it on to you.
Solid stuff, solid stuff. Like I told you offline, I actually want to get into reverse engineering at some point because this is really interesting. Yeah. I love the field, but as for now, I want to get I want to get more hands-on expertise in both web app penetration testing and in bug bounty hunting. And when I reach a comfortable level there, I'm also going to start getting into reverse engineering and maybe another topic or subtopic in cybersecurity. Okay, so with that said, a lot of you guys have actually posted a lot of questions, so thank you for that. And to post questions for future videos that we're going to select, once again, don't forget to look in the description of this video, so you'll have a link to the form, to the Google form, where you can leave your questions, and we'll probably get to them in the next videos in this series. So the first question, and I'm actually gonna read it literally, so exactly as the person wrote it. Yeah. It might not make sense, but we'll try to make some sense out of it. So the first question says, as someone who is questioning if they like cybersecurity versus other computer science interests, what tips would you recommend for someone majoring in cybersecurity, or pointers in general for US university students? Thanks. Okay, so the first part of the question, as someone who is questioning, so I'm gonna give you my twist, and then Alexis is gonna answer with his perspective on this. So the first part of the question says, as someone who is questioning if they like cybersecurity versus other computer science interests. Well, for starters, I would say that there's nobody or no one better or more entitled than you who knows what exactly you like in cybersecurity. So I wouldn't be able to tell you what you like in cybersecurity or other computer science like subfields. So this is a question that you have to answer yourself. I mean, first off, do you like cybersecurity? If you do like cybersecurity more than other subfields of computer science, okay, then we can look into the second part of this question. So if you like cybersecurity, or if you're interested in cybersecurity, then, and here's the second part of the question, what tips would you recommend for someone majoring in cybersecurity, or pointers in general for US students? So starting from the premise that you like cybersecurity versus other computer science fields, I would say that to get more, or to get better, or to get specialized in cybersecurity, first off, you would actually have to select. So since cybersecurity is a very large field and it becomes larger every day, you would actually have to select a subtopic of cybersecurity. Like, for example, if you like more the part of defending stuff, you would go for red team, like maybe a security architect, DevSecOps. I mean, I was talking about not red team, but blue team. So if you like to defend stuff, you would go for blue team stuff. And if you would like to, I don't know, attack, if you enjoy like breaking things, you would go for red team stuff, like a penetration tester, or a bug bounty hunter, or a network penetration tester, or a mobile app penetration tester. So each of these are becoming solid subfields in cybersecurity as the days pass. So once you know what exactly you want to specialize yourself in within cybersecurity, so let's say, for example, you want to get into mobile app penetration testing or mobile penetration testing, in that case, I would actually first look into what my curriculum in my degree, in my cybersecurity degree, offers me in terms of that specialization. If my university offers like mobile penetration testing or cybersecurity courses that are related to mobile. If they don't, I would actually look for that myself. I mean, there are tons of resources online that you can learn from. I would actually pick one or two courses, and then alongside I would take a book to learn mobile penetration testing. And most importantly, for that, I would actually look for a platform that has scenarios, like real life scenarios with mobile penetration testing. I think, I'm not 100% sure, I think that Hack the Box has some scenarios when it comes to Android and iOS penetration testing. And I'm more certain that Attack Defense Labs have scenarios for mobile penetration testing. So yeah, that's how you would actually approach this specialization from multiple perspectives. Yeah, I guess that's my take on it.
Yeah, that's. I feel that this question is getting asked more and more. Seeing many students, either doing a computer science degree or a cybersecurity degree, which are relatively new. So answering the first part, again, that is in regards to someone who is interested in cybersecurity versus other computer science interests. I think to some extent, various aspects of computer science, like programming or development, can also tie into to some extent into cybersecurity. And when I talk about this, I'm talking about the field of secure coding and stuff like this. So it's very easy to see students picking up the interest from these various subtopics in computer science. But getting to actually answering the first part of the question, is of course just getting your hands dirty with all of these various subtopics or subcategories of cybersecurity, because cybersecurity in general is a very wide topic, and you really need to narrow it down and in accordance to your skills and what you enjoy. So again, finding something that interests you and something that you're good at, just as a starting point, and then you can work on from there. So if you don't necessarily like it or enjoy it, you can then try something out. You can try something else out. So again, as I've just given you a simple example, I find most developers find it very easy or very intuitive to go from developing programs or software, and then to move into secure coding and then reverse engineering. So again, you can find these various connections, very closely tied to computer science. So again, I would recommend just taking a look at cybersecurity in general as a whole, and then taking a look at the subcategories or the specializations that currently exist. So whether that be maybe malware analysis, secure coding, penetration testing, web application security, auditing, stuff like that. once you've picked one of these specializations that you might be interested in, and that ties into your particular or specific skill set, I would then, recommend learning the basics or the foundations in regards to that field, and then, sort of getting a taste of how it works, how everything comes together, and also taking a look at, mentors or people who are at the highest level, sort of taking a look at how that works at that level. And then if you still feel that this is for you, you can then move on to actually practicing and improving your skills now. And then with that, for example, if you're performing penetration testing, you can take a look at CTFs, or vulnerable machines, vulnerable boxes, vulnerable web applications, whatever you're into, practicing and improving your skills. And then again, it's all about just building your skill set from there. And you can then move on to, also contributing to open source projects, getting engaged with the community, and, so on and so forth. And then if you finally end up making a career in it or wanting to pursue it as a career, you can take a look at the various certifications, or the various accredited programs that you can actually enroll in, that will give you, or actually give you a foot in the door of the industry, and so you can actually pursue a job. So that's pretty much what I think in regards to that question.
Yeah, so really on point. And I would actually have to reiterate what you said, and I would not be able to stress this enough. It's going to help you a lot accelerate your journey into the field when you start following people that are experts, yeah, or mentors, people that you might consider that could be your virtual mentors in that specialization. Like, for example, you can follow their Twitter streams, you can follow them, you can even follow them on LinkedIn to actually see what they're actually posting about their circle of people. Yeah. You could actually interact with people from their networks on LinkedIn. And I think that actually trying to get some sort of human connection within the field, that's going to be a plus, yeah, for you to actually accelerate your way into the specialization. Fellas, check out my Python Basics course to learn the fundamentals of Python that you need in cybersecurity. There's a discount link in the description. Okay, so moving on to the second question, which is kind of short. It's like, compared to this one that was long and might have been a little bit like hard to decipher. This one is actually short, and it says CISSP or CEH for late careers. And I mean, my answer here would be OSCP. Yeah. So to be honest, I mean, I'm biased when it comes to certifications, because I only have the OSCP, which I took this year. So I'm biased towards the OSCP, but there are other good alternatives. Now, when it comes to CISSP or CEH, I don't actually know much about either of them. I think, and I might be wrong, that CISSP might have to be renewed at some interval, I guess. I don't know. I may be wrong about this, but what I do, like, I'm more certain about is that both of them are more towards, like, compared to the OSCP, more towards theoretical, I would say, especially when it comes to the exams. I don't know if, from what I know, both of them are multiple choice questions in terms of the exam, but it might not make sense. So if, for example, you just want to have a certification and you don't actually want to, like, develop skill, I would say, develop practical skill, you can choose either of them. And I think that CEH is a really good HR filter. So meaning that HR recruiters are actually looking for the CEH when they actually look for candidates for certain positions in cybersecurity. So CEH might get you a job, but I wouldn't say that it actually reflects the level of skill you have compared to, for example, the OSCP or other certifications, which are like more expensive, like those from SANS or I don't even know what's the other one that's like also super expensive on the same side with SANS. I think it's the GW or GPAN. Do you know GPAN?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's also expensive. So when it comes to these, I'm not sure how expensive is CISSP or CEH, but I don't know. I wouldn't think, or I would be inclined to think that they don't reflect the level of knowledge or expertise someone might get compared to the level of knowledge or practice or skill someone might get if they follow or pursue a more like practical certification. But then again, if your purpose is not to get skillful but just to get a certification, go for either of them. Weigh the benefits and the disadvantages of each and make your decision. If I were to recommend a certification, I would go for the OSCP or the certifications from eLearn Security start becoming more and more popular, and they are kind of on the same level in terms of pricing with the OSCP. And from what some people say, the certifications from eLearn Security are actually more up to date than the OSCP. So I would also think of, and I will probably look into those myself at some point in time, because the OSCP kind of like fried my brain. So I'm just going to take a break for a couple of months and then look into it. But to answer your question, either one of them. Just if you're into just a certification, if you want to get some solid skill, go for OSCP or something from eLearn Security. Yeah.
So this question is a very rare question to get, because I'm aware of these certifications and their use in the industry. CEH is more of a beginner certification. It's essentially set up to actually prove that you actually are familiar with the cybersecurity fundamentals. So that's primarily what CEH is for. When talking about CISSP, it's like a completely different certification, because to actually obtain it, you need to have 2 years of working experience in the industry. So these two certifications are what I would call general cybersecurity certifications, in the sense that they're not really focused on one particular area in cybersecurity. As you just mentioned with the OSCP, that's more tailored towards penetration testers. With CISSP, as far as I know, which is a certification that I'll be looking to get probably in the next 1 or 2 years, is a certificate that is really useful at the higher levels of IT and cybersecurity. So not really working at the low levels where you're actually implementing security policies, performing pen tests. It's mostly for the high level positions where you're actually implementing or you're setting up the organization-wide cybersecurity policies. So again, just to actually clarify, CEH is something that you take at the beginning of your career, if you do end up taking it at all. I don't personally think it's worth it. The price and the price you pay for it and what you get out of it, it's mostly just an HR, so sort of like I would like to call it an artifact of what used to be the HR's go-to certification. But now, as the times have changed and we have the arrival of new certifications in the field, like as you mentioned, eLearn Security, OSCP, GPEN, these are now starting to become the standards. And also the CompTIA Pentest Plus, I believe that's the new certification from them. These are starting to become the standard. So CEH is something that just proves that you're familiar with the fundamentals of cybersecurity at a very high level. It doesn't touch on pen testing at all. CISSP is used to prove that you can manage cybersecurity in an organization And you'll usually find it's a certification that you'll find with many senior level individuals in companies, not really to do with the nitty-gritty of actual pen testing, implementing these things. It's to do with actually organizing and setting up a cybersecurity policy for a company or an organization. So I would say, as you said in your question, there is a mention of late in your career, but you haven't you haven't actually mentioned the what certifications you already have. So if you are starting off, I would recommend skipping the CH and going for the OSCP, as Chris said here. And then CISSP is something you can take on, late in your career when you actually require it and you are moving up the ladder into more of a corporate role or position.
Okay, so for late, like as you've said, just to reiterate, if the person who asked the question is actually just in it for something like less technical, from what I can see, they should go for the CISSP.
Yeah, it's more in tune with a security analyst position. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So let's then move to the third question.
Yeah.
Okay. So it says, I play CTF challenges from HTB, Hackbox, and VulnHub. I wanted to ask that how much real life like scenarios are featured in such CTFs. Also, do these CTF challenges help in bug bounties? Can we expect similar vulnerabilities during bug hunting? Okay, so this actually struck a really strong chord with me, because I recently did a video on why I do not play CTFs. And actually what I do instead. So I would actually recommend, I'm actually going to link to the video in the description of this video, but to just kind of get onto the same thread in that video, I really think that CTFs, I mean, a large majority of CTFs are freaking unrealistic. So I didn't play much CTF up until now, but now I've actually had the only CTF-like scenarios have been on HTB and VulnHub, some of them, which I don't know. Some of them might be a little bit realistic, but a lot of them are still unrealistic. But like the CTFs that you're actually playing in competitions, like on ctftime.org, I mean, those kind of scenarios, it's less likely to encounter them in real life.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna repeat the same thing. I mean, if you as a penetration tester have to do an assessment for someone, how many times do you actually think that you would have to find hidden text in freaking images, like steganography and shit like that? I mean, I don't know, it kind of pisses me off. So I don't think, and yeah, this is my current bias. I don't know, maybe change my opinion in the future, but I don't think so. So I think they are unrealistic. And on that same premise, or on that same train of thought, I don't think that they can actually help you a lot in bug bounties, because CTF is one thing and bug bounty is real life stuff. Now, again, if we talk about platforms like Hack the Box and Attack Defense, they have a lot of real life sort of like scenarios. Hack the Box can be CTF-ish with some like older boxes, but I think they have some labs that are newer, which kind of resemble real life stuff. And of course, on Attack Defense, which I've spent more time on, I would say that they have like really good real life-like scenarios. So what else do you ask? Do these CTF challenges help in bug bounties? I would say they don't. And a lot of you are gonna like jump to my jugular here, but it's my stance. I don't think they do help in bug bounties. If so, can we expect similar vulnerabilities during bug hunting? I wouldn't think so. Okay, so that actually answers your question. So to elaborate a little bit and to actually give you some takeaway, I would say that if you really want to get into bug hunting and you want real life stuff, you should go on Bugcrowd and on HackerOne and read the disclosure reports. So read the reports that were actually like written by bug hunters on how they actually discovered vulnerabilities and how those vulnerabilities could be exploited, because those are real world examples. So we're not playing scenarios, those are like real world examples. So that's probably one of the best ways to actually get a good grip of what bug hunting is, by actually reading what people have reported in terms of the bugs they found on different like bounty programs. Yeah, so that's actually my take on it.
Yeah, so I think you actually covered the majority of what I wanted to say. I think the main thing to understand is many of the students who are getting into it right now, or beginners getting into pen testing, there's this whole fixation on CTFs as being the primary area as to where you should be focusing your time in regards to actually practicing what you're learning or putting it into an actual practical area. But the thing that I think many people sort of overlook is the reason why CTFs were created. Like CTFs were created not to simulate a real pen test or a real world pen test, as it were. They were really just created to, first of all, act as a competition. And secondly, they were there to test your efficiency and speed with particular tools. Now, you also mentioned something very important there: the mix or the mixture of steganography and cryptography in CTF challenges has also become quite popular now, and many people actually think that this is something very common in pen testing, sort of reverse engineering or deobfuscating images or deobfuscating code. It's not something that you'll be coming across. But again, if you understand the difference between a CTF challenge and a real pen test, you know that CTFs are just there to of course, improve your efficiency and understanding of how to use the tool, and to sort of how to utilize this tool in ingenious ways, sort of work around mental blocks or work around problems. They really have nothing to do with a typical methodology that a pen tester follows. And I know they are quite similar. And many people actually, point that out, that you can actually build a good methodology from playing CTFs. Sort of working with scanning and fingerprinting, and then moving on to analyzing particular services, and then exploitation, post-exploitation, etc. So again, I think that CTFs are designed with an endpoint in mind. So before you actually start, you do know what the endpoint is. Whereas with a pen test, your job is to find as many vulnerabilities as possible, and so the only endpoint is that you've actually you've been able to test every aspect of the particular system on network. So coming to the question of bug bounties, as you said, it's a very, very different it's a very different monster you're dealing with here, in the sense that it's very difficult to actually replicate these vulnerabilities in a CTF. And, again, you can use CTFs to learn various web app pen testing techniques like local file inclusion, SQL injection. But in the real world, most of these web apps really don't suffer from these common misconfiguration vulnerabilities. They might, but it's going to be very uncommon. So again, the only way to get experience with bug bounty hunting is to actually take a look at the various submitted reports, take a look at what disclosures look like for various vulnerabilities, find what is more intuitive to you, and then start off at a very basic level, understanding the fundamentals of how the web works, and moving on from there. So again, CTFs are designed to be something completely different. They're more of a competition. So again, when talking about a competition, the two factors are going to be time and, of course, who gets to the end faster. So your efficiency and the time taken to actually get to the end goal. So pen testing is very different.
Okay, yeah, so solid advice on point. Let's actually move quickly to another question and try to get it like uh, done because we don't actually want to have these videos very long
Yeah.
due to the like shorter attention spans of people these days. I mean, we could go for hours answering just a single question, but we want to keep it like shorter up into like the 30-minute mark.
Yeah.
So our lab application pen testing tools can be used for single page application. Okay, so in short, I mean, whatever tool works for a multi-page application also works for a single page application, right? I mean, you don't actually have to be specific in this regard. So I wouldn't say that there are other pen testing tools that would work for single versus multiple page application tools. But anyway, so if you want to like see if there are other ports than the web ports open on the host, you would actually use Nmap or Masscan, for example. But pen testers, I mean web app pen testers, in a lot of situations don't use Nmap. Yeah, they mostly focus specifically on the web application itself, not on the network side of it. But that might be a problem because it often happens that you do have a lot of issues on the network that you would discover if you would also focus on the network, not only on the web application itself. But anyway, to get into the question, so you would you would you would look at the source code, for example. You would use burp, which is really really important to actually check all the inputs and try to see how the application reacts to unexpected input, how much error it throws, and what those errors reveal about what kind of sensitive information is revealed through those errors. If we're talking about a web application, you would of course be able to brute force for web directories, not only for directories but for files as well. So you would use tools such as dir search and GoBuster and Derb and Dirbuster, of course. You would look for not only for directories but also for file extensions such as JS files. And it's really interesting how you can discover JS files not by brute forcing them, but by actually trying to map the application manually. This is something that I've actually discovered myself while doing bug hunting recently. So not only JS files, but log files, text files, configuration files. You would also, in terms of tools, you would look for what the application is built on. So for that, you could use what CMS or Wappalyzer. If, for example, the application is or holds information and requires logins, you would actually see how the session is handled. You will look for broken access controls. You would also be looking for indirect object references, and to get a list of things that you could test for always. I mean, there's a good rule of thumb that you should check with the WASP top 10 and start from there. So there are practically tons of stuff and tons of tools that you can take and actually test your application, your single page application for. And there are methodologies out there. So of course, you can start with the penetration testing methodology, which is sort of like official documentation, but you could also look into like a bug hunting methodology, which a lot of people have their own versions of that. So yeah, I mean, go from here, and I guess that's my take on it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think this question sort of lacks a bit of context in regards to what they mean when they talk about a single page application. My interpretation is that you're dealing with sort of like a new web application that was built from scratch, as opposed to working with a content management system or any of the other frameworks that are being used. So again, if you are running a black box test, and the first thing you need to do is to analyze what languages and frameworks the page is built with. And then, of course, that gives you an idea as to what vulnerabilities currently exist within those particular frameworks. So, if you're working with PHP, do any vulnerabilities exist there? If you're working with Node, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, you can do this by by making use of the various browser extensions that you just mentioned, like using Wapalizer or Built With, just to get a basic idea of what you're dealing with beforehand. You can then take a look at using Burp Suite and sort of understanding how the web application works. So again, whether that may be with cookies, you take a look at sessions and CSRF, all of that stuff, all of that stuff to do with authentication, managing sessions, and how sessions are managed. That's if the web application does have the ability for users to log in, and it does store some user information. Then I would say moving on to fuzzing the application, the web application, sorry. So again, throwing data onto the web application and seeing how it reacts or responds to that. Just seeing the various parameters you can play around with, and then of course monitoring the output. And then directory brute forcing, which again, you can use GoBuster or Darebuster, whatever suits you. And that may help you find, certain directories that may have been hidden, or common misconfigurations with, with web servers, if they do exist. Yeah, I think that's, from my end, that's pretty much what I would recommend if you're dealing with a relatively simple web application as opposed to one that's quite complex. But I think fuzzing and using tools like Burp Suite are extremely vital in with this type of web applications. So yeah.
I guess we could kind of elaborate on each of these points, and it would actually take hours. Maybe we could get more specific into like phases of pen testing a web application in future videos, and spend like, I don't know, maybe an entire video on what you're actually doing in the recon phase, which not only applies to regular pen testing, but it's like a whole interesting area in of itself when it comes to bug hunting. Okay, so I think we might have crossed a little bit our time limit here, so we're just gonna end it here. So you guys keep asking your questions using the link below to the Google form, and we're actually try to get to as many of them as possible in future videos. So of course, you can find the links to all of our social media feeds or social media like sites. You can find us on Twitter, YouTube, Discord, and all that stuff. And there's links to everything in the description of this video. So I guess that with that being said, Alexis, thank you very much for your time, and guys, we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks to Chris for being here and spending his time answering these questions. And yeah, we'll be seeing you in the next episode.